After my grandmother, the only family I had left, passed away, something strange appeared in my life. It called itself a system and claimed that if I could spend 1 full year pursuing Brandon Cole, I would earn the chance to bring my grandmother back to life. That was how I became the most self-effacing girl at his side, swallowing my pride and doing countless foolish things for him. With only a week left before the supposed end of my task, I went to a hotel late at night to deliver something he had asked for. And without meaning to, I overheard him talking to his friends. They laughed as one of them praised him for his skill, saying he had managed to turn the school's beauty queen into something as obedient as a dog and asking him to teach them his ways. In the quiet of the night, I heard Brandon's lazy, mocking tone. "Easy," he said, "just install a hidden camera and a tiny microphone in her apartment. A girl who has no one to lean on is the easiest to fool." I told her I was a system that I could bring her grandmother back, and she actually believed it. Can you imagine? I remembered my first day at that school. I had arrived 30 minutes late, and when I knocked on the classroom door, a puff of chalk dust blew out, hitting me square in the face. The math teacher looked at me with undisguised contempt and barked at me for interrupting her lecture. "If you refuse to study, fine, but don't disrupt others. Go stand by the podium." I lowered my head and obeyed her scolding pouring into my ears. Some girls, she sneered loudly enough for the whole room to hear, spend their lives circling around men unable to live without them. "What do you think your pretty little face will let you cling to some rich boy and climb to the top? Is that what you think, Natalie?" Do you believe that laughter rippled through the room? My cheeks burned and I clutched the strap of my backpack until my knuckles whitened. When the bell finally rang for recess, the teacher muttered that I was shameless and walked out. I exhaled slowly, ignoring the mocking eyes on me, and walked straight to the back row where Brandon sat. "Brandon, here's the breakfast you wanted." I pulled out more than a dozen breakfast items one by one, each wrapped in triple layers of insulation to keep them warm. When I unwrapped them, steam still curled into the air. He glanced at them briefly, then reached over to pat the head of the girl beside him, smiling at her with tender affection. "Here's your breakfast, Sierra," she frowned. "It's been sitting too long, it's cold now. I don't want it." Brandon lifted a cup of soy milk and let a few drops splash onto the back of his hand, reddening his skin. This is how he always checked the temperature. "See, still warm," he said in that coaxing voice he used with her. "Drink it." Sierra didn't touch the food. Instead, her eyes slid to me, and she let out a bright laugh. "You really are the perfect loyal dog, Natalie." She looked positively entertained. "Did the teacher humiliate you just now? Your grandmother's gone, you have no one left to depend on, so now you want to cling to some rich man. Sure, Brandon's from a wealthy family, but do you think someone like you could ever set foot in their house? Dream on. If you really need money that badly, why not just sell yourself outright? At least stop pretending otherwise." "Right," Brandon. Laughter erupted around the room. I heard his cold voice. "She's right." Then came the jeers. "If you're that desperate, Natalie, I'll give you 2,000 to spend the night with me. I'll pay 3, but I get you first. Just don't go offering yourself at the market before I'm done." My fist clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms, but I forced myself to stay calm. "It's fine, just 10 more days. I could endure 10 more days, and then it would be over." The bell rang and Brandon mercifully told the others to stop, then threw me a look of pure disdain. "Get out of here." When I got home and unlocked the door, that cold electronic voice filled the room thick with disapproval. "Natalie Hayes, do you still want to bring your grandmother back? Your attitude today was far too cold, completely failing the mission's requirements. If this happens again, the chance of her resurrection will drop by 50%. The one speaking was my so-called system. I hadn't even had it for half a year when my parents were killed in a car accident, leaving only my grandmother and me. She worked herself to the bone days in a factory, early mornings sweeping streets. She pinched every penny so I could afford college. For my part, thanks to good grades, I tutored elementary school kids on weekends to bring in a little extra. Life was hard, but we were content. I had been so sure things would get better, ready for college entrance exams, and confident I'd win a scholarship. I planned to bring her with me to a small rental so she could rest, instead of working herself to exhaustion. But life had other plans. 1 year ago, she slipped and fell into a river on her way home from the factory and never came back. I cried until I collapsed, then somehow arranged her funeral. Returning alone to our tiny apartment, drowning in despair, I was ready to end it all when the system appeared, its icy voice, offering the last lifeline I thought I had. Because of my grades, I had been able to tutor elementary school kids on weekends, earning a little extra to help my grandmother with our expenses. Life was far from easy, but together we found contentment in the smallest victories. Everything seemed as though it might finally be turning for the better. I was preparing for my college entrance exams with full confidence I would win a scholarship. And once I got into college with the extra income from part-time jobs, I planned to bring my grandmother to live with me in a small apartment so she could rest instead of working herself to the bone. But life has a way of shattering even the simplest dreams. 1 year ago, on her way home from the factory, she slipped into a river and never came back. I cried until I collapsed, and when I woke, I somehow forced myself to arrange her funeral. The day she was laid to rest, I returned to our small apartment, the silence pressing in from every corner, my chest heavy with despair. I was ready to find a way to end my life when the system appeared. Its cold mechanical voice became my last lifeline. "Natalie Hayes, do you want to save your grandmother?" it asked. It called itself a conquest system, claiming to have the power to transcend life and death. All I had to do was pursue Brandon Cole, the golden boy of our school, for 1 year, and I would earn a resurrection card to bring her back. Temptation swallowed every rational thought, and I agreed without hesitation, even though I knew Brandon had once pursued me for a long time. When I rejected him again and again, he had looked at me coldly and said, "You'll pay for this, Natalie." From that day, I became the girl who humbled herself most completely at his side. He never hid his disgust, remembering every slight, every cool look I had given him. When he realized I was now chasing him, he laughed under his breath, his eyes glinting with mockery. "I thought you were the type of girl with principles, Natalie. Guess without your grandmother to keep you in line, your true colors are showing. If you want to chase me, you'd better show some sincerity." Sincerity in Brandon's vocabulary meant stripping away everything I held dear. First, it was my academic record, something I had always taken pride in. He told me he didn't like girls who only cared about studying. So in front of him, I set fire to my books, and study guides, watching years of dedication turn to ash. I skipped classes, cut school, and even handed in blank exam papers. Teachers called me in at first with concern, but their patience soon turned to scolding. When my absences earned me a formal disciplinary note, Brandon finally decided I had suffered enough, at least for that stage. Then he told me he didn't like girls who were too prim. In front of a crowd, I slipped off my jacket to reveal a revealing tank top and short shorts looping my arms around his neck. I recorded it and posted it on social media. Overnight, I became the bad girl among my peers, a disappointment to my teachers, a rebellious teen to strangers online. Brandon knew I had always valued my reputation, my traditional upbringing, and the fact that I had never been physically close to any boy. Yet he deliberately dragged me through the mud. What he didn't know was that my reputation had only mattered because of my grandmother. She was old-fashioned and could never have accepted anything that strayed outside the rules she believed in. I didn't want to break her heart, but she was gone now. What was the point of college, of reputation, of being humiliated by Brandon Cole? I only wanted her back. "Do you hear me? Natalie Hayes," the system's voice cut in sharply when I was silent too long. "If you keep this up, maybe there's no point continuing the mission." "No, please don't," I blurted in panic. "I know I was wrong. It won't happen again." I had endured 355 days. 355 days that felt like 355 years. "Good," the system replied smoothly. "But your behavior has significantly lowered Brandon's favorability score toward you. The mission will be extended another year unless." "Unless what?" "Unless you go to him right now, confess your feelings, and make him forgive you for today." I froze. Just then, Brandon posted an update on social media tagging himself at the largest nightclub in New York City. I had no choice. The word felt heavy in my mouth. Fine. It wasn't my first time walking into that place. 6 months earlier, Brandon Cole had celebrated his birthday at that same nightclub. I had shown up quietly with a cake I knew he loved, standing on the outer edge of the crowd and whispering a soft, happy birthday. My gift was met not with thanks, but with a sharp slap across the face from Sierra Brooks, his childhood friend. Her reason I had arrived 2 seconds late, making him miss the lucky moment to make his wish. Every eye in the room turned toward me, heavy with blame. Brandon sat at the center of it all, watching me for a long moment before letting out a cold laugh. "Natalie Hayes, you did that on purpose to irritate me, didn't you?" I shook my head quickly, terrified. He never touched the expensive cake, not even for a taste. Instead, I was forced to drink one glass of liquor after another. When the room spun and I tried to stumble outside for air, Brandon intercepted me and lifted me off the ground. His voice, pressed close to my ear, was laced with rage. "This is the price you pay for toying with my feelings. You owe me and you'll never finish paying that debt." The truth was, I had never toyed with him at all. Each time I turned him down, it was with sincerity and care. He had chosen to chase me to place himself at the center of everything. And when things didn't go his way, he dumped all the blame on me. He repulsed me, yet I was the one trapped with him. The memory made my stomach turn as I took a deep breath and stepped inside the club. Music pounded against my skull, lights flashing until my eyes ached. Brandon was in his usual spot, surrounded by a lively crowd. The moment he saw me, his brows drew together. "You're late, Natalie. It takes 30 minutes at most to get here from your place. You left home at 7:40, but now it's 8:30. How dare you show attitude toward me?" He was right. I had left at 7:40, but stopped to feed a stray cat downstairs, costing me a few minutes. Still, how could he know my exact schedule? My confusion must have shown because he smirked and looked away. "You liked my post. That explained it." My so-called system had told me a proper pursuer had to be attentive in every detail. Every time Brandon posted online, I dutifully liked and commented. I forced a placating smile, easing into the empty seat beside him. "I'm sorry, Brandon. I was wrong earlier today. Will you forgive me?" "Forgive you? Sure." He smiled, faintly mockery flickering in his eyes. "But you need to show me some sincerity." Sincerity again. I swallowed my irritation and kept my voice gentle. "All right." I reached for a glass of liquor, but his hand closed firmly over mine. "Drinking is boring." His gaze slid to my neck, and his fingers brushed the jade pendant I had worn for 10 years. "I want this." Ice spread through me. "Please, Brandon. I'll do anything else but not this. This is the last thing my grandmother left me." He cut me off with a smirk. "I know. That's why I want it." Tears welled as I bit my lip. 10 years ago, when I was often sick, my grandmother had heard somewhere that wearing jade could bring peace and health. She had walked more than 10 miles to buy it for me, spending 6 months of her savings. It wasn't valuable jade, but it held the weight of her love. From the moment I put it on, my health slowly improved. Over the past year, Brandon had forced me to give up so many things. This was the only keepsake I had left of her. "You really have no sincerity at all, Natalie." His voice was sharp and threatening as he unfastened the chain. My body felt like it was sinking into ice as he tossed the pendant to his Doberman like a toy. Someone nearby laughed cruelly. Not worth anything anyway, not even as much as one of Brandon's bottles of liquor. The pendant hit the ground, leaving a faint wet mark. The dog seemed to lose interest for a moment, then suddenly decided to swallow it. I lunged forward, prying its jaws open with both hands until I pulled the saliva-slick pendant free. Its sharp teeth tore into my palm, blood welling instantly. For the first time since I had known him, I saw a flicker of genuine panic cross Brandon Cole's face. "Natalie Hayes, are you insane? You grabbed something out of a dog's mouth. Is this thing really that important to you?" He shouted at the others, who stood frozen in shock. "Don't just stand there, come here." I forced back my tears, my voice trembling. "I was only worried your dog wouldn't be able to digest it and might get sick. Please don't be angry with me. I really do have sincerity toward you." His expression shifted from pale to flushed and back again before he finally said nothing at all. Brandon took me to get a rabies shot. Maybe there was still a sliver of decency in him, because for the next 2 days, he didn't bother me, and the system didn't pressure me to do anything to raise his so-called affection score. Every night at exactly midnight, I would cross another day off my calendar, my heart tight with anticipation and a kind of desperate joy. 7 days left until I could see my grandmother again. Would the system bring her back the way she had been, with that warm smile and gentle eyes? I didn't dare ask. The system was temperamental, and whenever I asked too many questions, it would accuse me of losing focus and threaten to extend my mission. All I had to do was wait. Wait for the resurrection card. Wait for the day my grandmother and I could be together again. All I wanted was for Brandon to leave me alone and the system to stop pressing me. But nothing in my life had ever gone as planned. The system's cold voice and a text from Brandon came at the same time. Natalie, go buy 2 boxes of condoms and meet me at this address. Get the largest size. And wear the lingerie I bought you. Between us, nothing physical had ever gone beyond a brief moment when I forced myself to kiss him, swallowing down my nausea. I had always told myself the day would never come when he demanded more. But his blunt, lewd messages tore that illusion apart. Natalie Hayes, if you refuse, the mission fails immediately, the system warned. Or maybe you really don't want to save your grandmother, Grandma. I closed my eyes, pain and desperation knotting in my chest. If it meant bringing her back, I would trade my life without hesitation. 7 days left. I couldn't quit now, not at the very end. Absolutely not. I texted Brandon back, agreeing to every condition. I changed into the lingerie, took pictures, sent them for his approval. Then went to a convenience store to buy what he asked for. The road a few hundred feet ahead was under construction. Buses weren't running, so I hailed a cab. I arrived at the hotel 20 minutes early and was about to ask the front desk for his room key when I spotted him and a friend, their backs turned to me. I started toward them. Just a few steps away, their voices carried clearly over the thump of music. Brandon's friends sounded impressed. "Brandon, you're incredible. How did you train such a pure campus beauty into such an obedient little dog? Teach me your ways." I'd heard insults like this before. I was used to them. But my calm shattered at Brandon's next words. In the lazy, mocking tone I knew too well, he said, "Easy. Install a tiny camera and a hidden speaker in her apartment. Girls with no one to rely on are the easiest to fool." I told her I was a system that could bring her grandmother back, and she believed it. "Can you believe that?" the friend asked. "So what if when the time comes, Natalie insists you bring her grandmother back?" Brandon chuckled. "I'll make up a few minor faults, extend the mission another year and then another. Her grandmother is the only thing she cares about. She won't dare refuse me. She can't." "That's brilliant, Brandon. I never realized you were this smart." Each word was like a blade driven into my skull. My legs felt weak, my hands shaking until the items I was holding dropped to the floor with a loud thud. Brandon heard it and turned around. When his eyes met mine, his face went instantly pale. "Natalie, how long have you been standing there? Listen to me, let me explain." He grabbed my wrist. The arrogance he usually wore replaced with something that almost looked like fear. Brandon's voice was shaky. His usual arrogance replaced with an almost pleading tone. "I only did it because I liked you so much, Natalie. You always turned me down, and I didn't know how else to get close to you. So I came up with this. I really know I was wrong. Just give me another chance, please." I stared at him, my eyes empty, tears slipping uncontrollably down my cheeks as my body trembled. The world around me blurred, voices and sounds fading until everything felt like a void. No wonder, I thought. No wonder that so-called system could only exist inside my apartment, never communicating with me outside. No wonder Brandon always knew my exact schedule, and I naively believed it was because he paid attention to my social media likes. No wonder that every time I displeased him, the system scolded me. Or whenever I asked about the resurrection card, it grew angry and refused to answer. It was all fake. Every bit of it was a cruel game he had invented to get back at me. The system was fake. The mission was fake. The resurrection card was fake. Everything was a lie. Images of my grandmother's warm smile flooded my mind. The woman who had ended up in a hospital bed while Brandon sat at her side in my dreams. When I woke, he had been there helping me sit up, his voice full of forced concern. "Natalie, you're awake. How do you feel?" "The doctor said you were suddenly overwhelmed, that's why." He trailed off, unable to finish, just watching me with feigned worry. "Want me to get you something to eat?" I met his eyes calmly. "Why did you treat me this way?" He lowered his gaze to the floor, voice trembling. "Natalie, I know you're angry, but I only did it because I liked you too much, so I played with you a little." I laughed, a sound tinged with bitterness. "Liked me too much. You humiliated me, controlled me, bullied me. And you call that just a little? Why, Brandon? Why did you do this? Is it because I rejected you? Did you think I was pretending to play hard to get? I truly didn't like you?" He looked up suddenly as if remembering something. Over the past year, under the guise of the system, He had tested me more than once. Natalie, when you turned me down before you were pretending right. You had feelings for me all along, didn't you? In the beginning, I had answered honestly. I didn't like him. At all. To me, he was just another classmate, no different from anyone else. Even his carefully staged confession had left me unmoved, no more meaningful than the anonymous notes I sometimes found in my locker. All I wanted was to study hard, get into a good college, and earn enough so my grandmother could stop working herself sick. But he hadn't believed me. Don't lie, Natalie. I'm the system of this world. Nothing escapes me. If you keep lying, I'll declare your mission failed immediately. I had wanted to see my grandmother again so badly that in later interrogations, I always told him yes, I had felt something for him, and he believed me. That's fine, Natalie. His voice would soften. If you didn't like me before, that's okay. We still have a future. I can spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Just give me a chance. His eyes now were filled with what looked like sincerity. For a fleeting moment, I saw him as he had been a year ago, when he had rented out an entire rooftop garden to stage an elaborate confession. Pretending to be a parent searching for a tutor, he had lured me there. That same expression had been on his face, then telling me he liked me and wanted me to be his girlfriend. But I hadn't liked him. That day, surrounded by a crowd, I knew rejecting him outright would humiliate him, so I accepted the bouquet just to avoid a scene, then found a quiet corner to tell him no. He hadn't accepted it. Instead, he'd treated my rejection as a challenge, forcing his way into my life, and when I finally rejected him publicly, stripping him of his pride, his face had gone cold and pale. You're good, Natalie. Just wait and see. And I had waited through a year-long nightmare that had all been his revenge. Brandon had long acted as if he were my boyfriend, inserting himself into my life in ways that crossed every boundary. When my homeroom teacher once threatened to call my grandmother to school over a matter involving him, I couldn't take his overbearing behavior any longer and publicly rejected him in front of everyone. His face had drained of color, then hardened with rage. You're good, Natalie. Just wait. And I had waited through an entire year that turned out to be nothing more than an elaborate vindictive joke. Natalie, let the past stay in the past, he said now. The dead can't come back. Give me a chance to take care of you in your grandmother's place, to spend my whole life making things right. His words pulled me out of my thoughts. I looked at him for a long time before nodding slowly. Fine, I'll give you a chance. For 2 seconds he seemed frozen. Then he lit up, practically leaping with excitement, as he pulled me into a careful embrace. I knew you'd forgive me. His sentence was cut short by the sound of a blade piercing flesh. I shoved him back, pulled the paring knife from my hand, and drove it into him again. Looking into his stunned eyes, I smiled sweetly. Brandon, go to hell. His mouth opened as if to say something, so I leaned closer to hear. But Sierra Brooks's panicked scream from the doorway shattered the moment. Help, someone's killing him. He wouldn't die. He was the central character in this world. Someone rushed in, wrenched the knife from my hand. I watched with grim satisfaction as he was carried barely breathing toward the operating room. Then, just as I thought it was over, a cold mechanical voice rang in my head. This time, I knew it wasn't coming from outside, it was inside me. Brandon had told me once there was no such thing as a system, that it was something authors made up to entertain fools, the kind of thing only those without money or power believed in. The operating room lights flared above us. I forced myself to stay calm and tried speaking to the voice in my mind. Are you the system? Can you bring my grandmother back? No, it replied. The hope that had just begun to kindle inside me went out in an instant, and I gave a bitter smile. Of course not. There is no such thing as resurrection. The dead cannot return. Not even a real system could change that. Life and death are part of nature's law. Even I cannot break it. Bringing your grandmother back is not a small matter. If every host demanded to see their lost loved ones again, this little world would collapse, and I cannot bear such consequences. Its explanation was chillingly logical. I understand, I answered. It's fine. I only asked. The voice was silent for a long time, then spoke again. But I can let you see her in another way if you complete my task, another mission. The thought alone made me want to laugh. Thinking of all the so-called tasks Brandon had used to deceive me, I couldn't help but ask. Another conquest mission. Who do you want me to go after this time? The system laughed, the sound twisting with the crackle of static until my head throbbed. Finally, it stopped and explained. The world you live in is actually a novel, not a sweet romance, but a revenge story. When you finish this mission, I can take you and your grandmother to another world to start over. But first, let me show you where she is now. In front of me, a scene unfolded. A beautiful woman was cooking a pot of soup while a long line of people waited for a serving. After drinking, each of them jumped into a wide, dark river. Only a small, frail woman stayed behind, her posture slightly bent. She tended the fire for the cook poured in more water. Every time a spirit warden passed and asked why she lingered, she smiled warmly. My granddaughter is timid. I can't bear to let her enter reincarnation alone, so I'll wait for her here, someone scoffed. By tomorrow, when you've aged into a spirit yourself, she might not even recognize you. And even if she does make it here, she might not know you anymore. The old woman just kept smiling, her voice soft and certain. How could I not recognize her? And she'll know me too. I'll wait as long as it takes, so don't you worry. My grandmother's smile never wavered. How could it? She looked at the spirit wardens with quiet defiance. How could I not recognize my granddaughter? And she will know me too. I'll wait for her, no matter how long it takes, so don't you worry about me. The sight of her wrinkled face, those warm eyes, and that gentle smile I had seen countless times in my life, broke me completely. Tears streamed down my cheeks, unstoppable. Brandon didn't die. His surgery lasted the entire night, and afterward, he was moved to the ICU for 2 days before he was finally declared out of danger. During that time, I wasn't allowed to leave the hospital. Sierra Brooks made sure to paint herself as the hero. Aunt, if I hadn't shown up in time, Brandon would be dead. Of course, the Cole family knew the truth, but before he was wheeled into the operating room, Brandon had managed to tell them not to hold me responsible. He said that if he didn't make it, or if he woke up and didn't see me, he would die immediately. Being their only son, they couldn't risk it. So for those days, they treated me as if I were some honored guest. The moment Brandon regained consciousness, the first thing he did was demand to see me. The 2 knife wounds hadn't been fatal, but they were bad enough that even speaking was an effort. Natalie, his voice came weak and thin, could you give me another chance? Honestly, I had never imagined that someone as arrogant and untouchable as Brandon could become this pitiful after almost being killed by me. The system's voice slid into my mind as if it had been reading my thoughts. His feelings are real, it said, but they are the feelings of a sick mind. Men like him, golden boys who believe the world is theirs, cannot accept anything outside their control. This meekness is nothing more than a twisted form of possessiveness. Don't forget your mission, host. My mission to do to Brandon exactly what he had done to me. Draw him in, give him hope, then destroy it myself. Shatter his entire life. That couldn't be done with a few choice words. I stayed silent. My silence only agitated him, his monitors beeping wildly as his vitals spiked. Mrs. Cole's face paled. Brandon, don't get so worked up. Natalie didn't mean it like that. She turned to me, her eyes full of pleading. Natalie, please just give him a chance. The system spoke again, pressing into my thoughts. Agree to it. Then demand something big, ask for all her shares and real estate holdings. Are you insane? Mrs. Cole's voice cracked in outrage the moment she heard my request. Natalie, you're asking me to hand over every share and property I own. She glared at me with a mix of shock and fury. I really thought you were some innocent little girl who'd somehow charmed my son. I didn't expect you to be so greedy. You think that just because my son looked at you a few times, you have the right to sit here and negotiate with me? Take a good look in the mirror and see what you are. I smiled faintly. Before I met Brandon, she had told me that as long as I kept him happy, she'd agree to any request I made. But now that I had made one, she was suddenly unwilling. She raised her voice sharp and threatening. I've tolerated you for my son's sake, but don't think you can keep pushing. Stay with him and I'll give you money, but don't dream of taking what doesn't belong to you. I ignored her threats and shook the phone in my hand. Brandon, you hear that? Your mother's still threatening me. With her attitude, do you really think I could forgive you? His monitors screamed again, the nurses rushing in. Mrs. Cole stood at the doorway in tears, her earlier arrogance gone. When his vitals finally stabilized, Brandon looked at his mother once, his voice faint but firm. Mom, this is a debt I owe Natalie. If you won't give it, then I'll have to pay with my life. Mrs. Cole sobbed, shaking her head. No, don't do that. I'll give it. I'll give you everything. When those shares were finally in my hands, The first thing I did was sell them to the second largest shareholder in the coal group. Every penny I got from the sale, I donated to nursing homes and programs for the elderly who had no one else. The system sounded genuinely surprised. Money like that, the system reminded me, could have been carried with you even after the mission was over. Why give it all away? Have you forgotten how much you once lacked? And yes, I remembered. I remembered that money mattered, that if my grandmother and I had had enough of it, she wouldn't have had to work herself to the bone every day and night. She wouldn't have slipped into the water one early morning when no one was around. If we'd had money, I wouldn't be standing here today. But the Cole family's wealth was something I could never bring myself to keep. The system sighed, almost helpless. Fine. This system is generous. In the next world, I'll arrange for you to have a comfortable family to live in. Meanwhile, inside the Cole family, a war was erupting. The once untouchable patriarch, Edward Cole, had lost his standing as the largest shareholder after I sold my shares. His control slipped to under 1%. Every day, he and his relatives were buried in corporate chaos, their heads bowed in defeat. Brandon didn't care. All he focused on was preparing for our engagement. Yes, I had agreed to be with him on the day he fully recovered. That day, his joy was nearly manic, but he didn't dare touch me as he once had. Instead, he took my hand with deliberate gentleness. When I pulled it away, disappointment flickered in his eyes, quickly masked by his own rationalizations. It's fine, he told himself. After all I've done wrong, it's only natural she resists. As long as she's with me, I'm happy. Everything he had ever done to me, I gave back in equal measure. And I made sure Sierra Brooks was part of it. I lost count of how many times Brandon forced her to fetch my breakfast, or how many times I accidentally poured hot water on her. Eventually, she snapped. Are you out of your mind, Brandon? Who is she to me that I should serve her every day? I'm making 10 different breakfasts, like she's some pig that can't stop eating. She forgot, of course, that they had once treated me exactly the same way. Back then, I endured their cruelty countless times. Now the instigator was more furious than the victim. Brandon's patience ended. He locked Sierra in the basement and let a vicious dog loose on her. Her screams tore through the night. He covered my ears gently. Natalie, don't let such filthy sounds stain you. The next day, Sierra emerged bloodied and unrecognizable. Her family stormed in furious until I calmly handed them a USB drive containing the basement's surveillance footage. People started saying Brandon had gone mad. To make me smile, he even fought over food with a dog in front of everyone. When his mother found out, she fainted on the spot. When she came to, she pointed at him and called him an idiot. She even claimed I was cursed, that I had bewitched her son. That's when she hired so-called spiritual masters to exorcise me. They kidnapped me in secret and planned to burn me alive. But with the system's help, before the flames could touch me, Brandon arrived. The chaos that followed left one person burned to death, but it wasn't me. A passerby caught the entire incident on video, and soon it was everywhere online, sparking outrage. This was a country governed by law, and those masters weren't even from here, igniting international debate. When Mrs. Cole heard, she fainted again. Brandon, however, stayed calm, smiling faintly as he said, "Looks like we won't be able to have our engagement after all." "That's just as well," Brandon said quietly. "It means you won't be dragged down with me." I knew exactly what he meant. The Cole family hadn't gotten to where they were just by relying on money and business sense. They had touched things they should never have touched, crossed lines they should never have crossed. And it was Brandon's own madness that had pushed everything to the edge. Now the secrets they had buried for so long were spilling into the open. No one would escape unscathed. "I still have some cash and jewelry," he murmured. "I'll give them to you later. As long as you can forgive me, I'll be happy," I laughed softly. "Who told you I forgave you, Brandon? Do you even know systems are real? One came to me while you were being operated on. You sat there stunned, listening to me tell the whole story. The only reason I stayed with you was because it was part of the system's mission. Someone as vile as you, just seeing your face for 1 second makes me sick. How could I ever truly be with you?" His eyes reddened, his lips parted as if to speak, but all he could do was call my name. On the television, the news was broadcasting his arrest as he tried to flee. The system's cold voice echoed in my head. "The mission is nearly complete. With my protection, this crisis won't touch you. Do you want to remain in this world a while longer?" I shook my head. Since the day my grandmother died, every day had been meaningless, and now there was nothing left to keep me here. I just wanted to see her again. The crystal chandelier above shook violently, then crashed down. Brandon threw himself over me, shielding me with his body. Warm blood ran across my face. As my soul began to tear free from my body, I heard his fading voice. I'm sorry. If I could start over, if I hadn't done those things, would it have been different? A foolish question. I didn't want to answer. I didn't even want to look at him again. Instead, I smiled faintly and made my own request to the system. When we go to the new world, can you make my grandmother my younger sister? She's suffered too much. This time, I want to be the one to protect her. Time passed long enough for me to think the system had refused long enough for me to be standing in the line for reincarnation when I saw that familiar small figure. The voice came again, softer now, like a promise whispered into my heart. Of course. And then it was over. I closed the final page of the novel, slid it onto my nightstand, and turned off the light. My little sister was already curled under the covers, just starting her second year of middle school. I adjusted her blanket and whispered, "You've got school tomorrow, sleep early." She obediently closed her eyes. The night stretched out around us. I glanced toward the window where the sky shimmered with stars, so beautiful it hurt to look at. For a moment, I remembered my past life, the nights I survived by counting the stars, believing that my grandmother was the brightest one watching over me. Behind me came the faint rustle of sheets, then her small, hesitant voice. "Sis, do you think this is our fate?" I turned to her, brushing away the tear at the corner of her eye. My voice was gentle, a lullaby in the dark. "No, this is just a story. From the day you were born, you've been the person I've loved most in this world.